fiber on here today?
Definitely a little bit more juice. I think anytime, when you work hard for something, you get the outcome that you want. Guys they have reason to be happy about what they put out there. And by far, it was far from the cleanest game, but nonetheless, we found a way. And like we've talked about so many times, you're always going to celebrate your victories and then move on to the next game.
I think you have 13 picks. 12 are still here, one's on the practice squad, the other's holding a clipboard, but I think of the 10 other draft choices, it seemed they all made a play in that game. How important that is, winning effort to kind of just start banking that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think anytime you have young players contributing and more importantly, showing progress, that's what we need to see. And these guys are getting more and more experience, more and more opportunities, and it was great to see guys that have played, just sparingly, like an Anthony Johnson go in there and make a couple big plays. He had a nice PBU when they threw that stick route to Higbee, and obviously get the interception, and just he did his job consistently throughout the course of the game. And it's great to get Musgrave finally in the end zone and hit him on 2 explosion plays. But yeah, all those guys seem to had their moment to make a play.
When you turned on the film, what was the progress that you did see, and in terms of points of emphasis, what are you focusing on to make sure you grow that and build that going forward?
What phase of the game are you talking in?
Each one. Let's just go down the
list. I thought there was. I'll start with our offense. It was good to, on the first series, get a first down for a change and not go 3 and out. And I thought, we had more opportunities out there. Obviously, the 4th down penalty really hurt us because, we were able to start to get into a little bit of a flow, a little bit of a rhythm. I want to say we scored on our second possession of the game. So it was good to get just into the flow of the game, be able to get a bunch of normal first and second down plays called throughout the course of the game. It allowed us to run the football. I thought, it was pretty effective. Takes a lot of pressure off the guys up front and certainly on our quarterback. And so I thought, there was a lot of progress. And still there was more opportunity out there for our offense where we didn't capitalize on some short fields. That not only the defense, but our special teams set us up with some very advantageous situations that we didn't capitalize on. I thought the energy from our defense throughout the course of the game was as good as we've seen it here. Guys like Carrington Valentine brought a lot of juice. I thought Ja was flying around. J.O., a lot of the guys on the back end, just playing decisively, and Keyshawn Nixon getting in there on a couple of those blitzes and shooting his shot, and Isaiah McDuffie just triggering when he saw whatever it was. Saw whatever he saw in front of him. But a lot of guys contributed, and I just think that's infectious when these guys play with that type of energy and that passion. Generally, it has a positive effect on our team. And then, like I mentioned on special teams, just some of those big returns that we had. Like we had the 51-yard kickoff return. We had a couple nice punt returns, and still there was more opportunity out there to make them even bigger plays where we're like 1 block away. So just there was a lot of positive throughout the course of the game.
That was Christian diagnosed with a concussion?
No, he was not, but we're still kind of just following it closely just to make sure.
What do you think of how you guys defended the run? You mentioned it wasn't just the interior guys. It looked like your corners were getting after it a little bit too.
Yeah, I thought those guys were filling hard. Our safeties, J.O. was triggering, in a lot of those crack situations, and then the corner's got to be there to crack replace. I thought all in all it was pretty solid. They still had a couple runs that kind of got loose on us a little bit, but I mean that they get paid too. So But all in all, I thought it was a positive day.
There's a difference between playing against Brett Rippon to Matthew Stafford, just like any starter to a backup. When you evaluate what the defense did, how do you take that into account? I imagine you're looking at MAs or guys doing their job, but how do you take that into account?
Yeah, we had very minimal mental errors. Certainly there was a couple execution errors, and I think, when you're playing against a guy of the caliber of Matthew Stafford, he can make you pay when you are a little bit off. And there were a couple instances where they had some windows that, not taking anything away from Rippon, but, Matthew's an elite. He's one of the best in the game. And but you can't sit there and say, well, what if this, what if that? I mean, you got to take it for what it is and just try to learn from both the positives and the negatives and move on to the next game.
Watson, real quick, is there chest and back? I think is there any concern with any of those?
I don't believe so. No.
To Jordan, he was 12 out of 13 yesterday in the second half, and the one was a throwaway. What did you think of how he played in the second half, and what really clicked for him in that regard?
Yeah, I just think I thought he did a nice job of just being decisive and taking what was there. And there were still a couple other plays. I think that, where we allowed some pressure where it's, hey, if somebody's getting through here, you got to get to your check down a little bit quicker. There was the one on third down when we had that 3rd and 16 where he tried to flip the ball out to Aaron Jones, and where you just don't want to kind of put the ball at risk in that situation. So there were some good teachable moments. I think just the sack and the 2-minute situation in terms of not trying to be so picky and just taking the shallow or progressing to the under that was on the backside. But I think he's going to have those moments. I think most quarterbacks do, and very few have played a perfect game, like I mentioned yesterday. And but I thought, all in all, it was a pretty positive performance, especially when we needed some of those throws late in the game to kind of ice the game, and the guys made some plays for him. Rome had a really strong hands catch, on that 3rd down. And then obviously Christian going up for that ball, that was huge. That was good to see that development, because we haven't had a ton of success on those 50 balls, and he went up there and he made a great catch.
Play, touchdown, about as precisely an executed play and got exactly what you want kind of thing.
Yeah, I thought the guys did a really good job, and certainly you're banking on the fact that the guy that can really stop that play is the middle linebacker. If he doesn't play one of those, the behind motion screen or the halfback running a wide route, if he doesn't trigger on that, he's going to be sitting right there in the window, and now that play looks foolish, right? So, but that's why you pull the lineman to try to show screen, and those guys usually trigger and get out of there. And but our guys did an excellent job with it. I thought Luke had great patience on it. I think that's one of the things that helps sell the play, is just the patience to stay on that block and kind of eyeball the middle linebacker. And when he takes off, that's when you shoot inside. And then Jordan, throw a perfect ball.
At the end of that first touchdown drive, John Runyon was on the sideline for the last few snaps. Was that a situational thing with Sean Ryan? I know he had.
No, he was injured, or he was getting looked at.
On some of Jordan's dropbacks, they look really deep. Is that standard? Is that something you're working with him on? How's that help? Some of his dropbacks.
Yeah, I mean, we never want to be deeper than 10 yards, and if you are, you better be ready to hitch up. There was nothing that I was really concerned about. A lot of it's feel too, so yeah. Yeah, in terms of you got to feel the outside presence, those edge rushers, whether or not how hard you have to hitch up into a pocket.
So it seems like Wicks, Dobbs, even Christian, you say they're 50-50 balls, the coverage, but I mean, would you like to be able to see where you can complete these passes where these guys are upright and that helps them with their yards after the catch?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely want to throw and lead people and hit them in stride so you can get the most out of the game, the play. But I thought, for the most part, I thought Jordan threw pretty accurately.
Runyon,
Probably know this, given how many games you've won here, but what is your Victory Monday policy?
Every year's different. Why? Is that a talk of the locker room today? Or?
No. I actually talked to a couple of veteran guys who thought this is not a team that should have a Victory Monday yet. And I was kind of going to build off of that in terms of your thought process on that, that it's great to break a losing streak, but we got a hell of a lot more work to do, or what's kind of your thought process there?
Yeah, I don't think we're in any position right now to take an extra day. We've got a lot of players that need to come in, and I think a lot of times, and one of the things I talked to the team about was just making sure that when you do have success, when you do win, how critical can you be of yourself, and trying to find there's always something you can do better. And I think when you do have some success, that's when you have to be the most critical. So challenge those guys in that regard, and I think those guys take that to heart, and challenged our coaches to do the same. And I just think that that's how we're going to get the most out of this team. But I mean, like I said earlier, there was a lot of opportunity to kind of put the game away much earlier. I mean, I felt like we were in pretty much control through the course of the game, and it's a one-possession game, you know, and it was a 10-point game late into the fourth quarter or whatever it was. So we got to capitalize when you have opportunities, when you have short fields. I thought our defense did an unbelievable job when we turned the ball over on back-to-back possessions of playing that sudden change defense. That was big time for us, and that, you know, quite frankly, I mean, that was the difference.
Runyon seemed still pretty confused about those offsides calls after the game yesterday. He said he's been playing those short yardage plays the same his whole life, and that they just started to emphasize like where he puts his head this week. You seem pretty flabbergasted on the broadcast with both those calls. What's your understanding of that, and do you have to coach it differently now?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have to we should have made that adjustment before the second time, you know, after it gets called one time, and we'll get clarification, hopefully, from the league on that, and whether or not they think those were valid calls.
Matt, going back to what you were saying about Luke on the touchdown, you know, it was a couple of weeks ago where you said you were running a totally different play, but you said he's doing it at 100 miles an hour, and you'd like to, you know, hey, do it at 90 miles an hour.
Sure.
Is that is that a really good example, though, of the growth, that it's not always linear and it's not right away, but that you're looking for from these young players, is that he ran that play and showed the patience that maybe 2 weeks ago he might not have?
Yeah, I think we're always, I mean, just really coaching the detail of when you can, if you want to call it tempo or route or whatnot. But I think the more these guys play, the game kind of slows down for them too, and they get to understand how to and when to use their speed to their advantage.
You made some practice scheduling alterations last week, and I get that some of that was because of the mirror week stuff and the fact that the Rams are so similar schematically. But how much do you think that going the 1v1s more in midseason was helpful and carried over? Is that something that you'll continue doing with this young team?
Most likely, yes. I think every week we're going to have a little bit different. We might tweak the schedule however we see fit, and I think you got to be pretty fluid with that, but you know, and not deviate from the routine too far, because I do think it's important to have your rhythm throughout the course of the week. But I just thought the competition element added to practice, it just intensifies it, and it makes it more game-like, and hopefully that leads to better results on Sunday, because it's not a shock. They've been going against that type of speed all week.
What's the balance for you, especially against an opponent that doesn't mirror you so similar, to make sure that you're preparing for the scheme you want to see, but still having those competition elements?
Yeah, I think again, every situation might be a little bit different in terms of how we want to approach those periods. But I do think there's a lot of value, especially when you're talking, some of the things that people do on third down and whatnot, situationally, where it's really good, 2-minute third down, where you can get the good on good.
Jordan owned the first deep ball. He said, obviously I underthrew it. How did you evaluate each of those throws? And I don't want to make a huge deal about one 37-yard completion, but just given how much emphasis you've put on it, given how the results have been kind of uneven, what does that one play do for you guys potentially?
You're saying the one at the end of the game?
The one that worked, but then evaluation on the both
Yeah,
throws.
There's going to be times when you're not going to throw the perfect ball, and certainly I think more than anything else, you'd like to just, when we get behind a defense, you got to give your guy a chance, to go up and make a play, and he just was a little too, I'd say, tempoed, and I don't know, just you got to trust it and let it rip.
So the first one, he should have just thrown it sooner too? Is that fair?
Yeah, it's kind of, so that is an inside release go ball. And typically those are 7-step timing plays for us. Well, with where we were on the field, if we would have taken a 7-step drop, he probably would have ran out the back of the end zone. So I just think there's a little bit of tempo, and I think there's a good learning moment for him of, when he needs to speed it up. And quite frankly, I just think he needed to put it out there further and more towards the back of the end zone.
In terms of the accuracy of that ball, because there's a lot of things that Jordan's obviously done well, but it's no secret that the deep ball accuracy hasn't regularly been there. What's the adjustment for him to make sure that he is putting it out there more fundamentally? What does he have to adjust?
I just think he's got to shut his mind off and let it rip. I think a lot of times when you try to aim something or guide it, you're not gonna be as successful. I think he's been throwing the ball for a long time. I think he's done a much better job of putting air under the ball. I think two of the explosion plays that we had in the second half, the one to Wicks, I thought that was an unbelievable pass. I know it wasn't a go ball, but he had pressure in his face, and he stayed on platform and changed his arm angle and threw a ball right on the money to Wicks. And then it followed that up the next play on that deep cross route to Musgrave. That was a beautiful pass as well. So it sounded like he certainly can make all those throws.
Matt, after looking at the film and looking at it more extensively, what do you think changed in the run game beyond just kind of having that ability to let Aaron Jones loose?
We had more opportunity. We did a better job on third downs, and we were staying ahead of the sticks, which usually, and we converted some of those long third downs. I know we had the screen pass to Aaron Jones on the 3rd and 12 when we were kind of in our own territory, and then we had the one in the 2-minute situation. I think it was like 3rd and 18 or whatever it was, where we hit Rome on the sidelines on that. It was like a corner comeback type route. But I just think you got more opportunities when you convert on third down, and that's something that I would say the last couple of weeks we've kind of struggled with. And when you're running the ball effectively, and you're more apt to call more runs. So I think it was a combination of a lot of things. But we were in our normal mode of offense the entire game.